Beyond digital transformation and all these big words about IoT, there are real use cases and real customers. Kostas is one of our cloud architects. We're working with customers on real case studies, and he's here to talk to us about process manufacturing in a real-life context. You're watching the Internet of Things show. I'm Olivier, your host. We have Kostas today on the show to talk about real-life scenario for IoT. Kostas, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
So tell to our audience who you are and what you're doing in life.
So yes, I'm a cloud solution architect. I am focusing on IoT. Proud member of the Dutch team, so Microsoft Netherlands, part of the customer success unit, and I'm helping my customers achieve more, unleashing the power of IoT.
Cool, so go ahead and give us a rundown of the problem that we're trying to solve here.
Right, so this is a real-life scenario that is coming from the process manufacturing domain. The asset that we're going to be focusing on is an industrial pipe that liquid travels through the pipe, flows through the pipe.
So for me, it's a pipe, and there's liquid go through, right? What
That's
can
correct.
go wrong, right?
But many things can go wrong.
Okay.
We have either two high flow or low flow. So high flow means that some air bubbles, some gas bubbles are trapped within the liquid, but there are also some particles that traveling very fast through the pipe are causing the pipe to thinner the inner layer of the pipe.
Okay, so to wear out faster than it should. Okay.
Correct. So that would create a leakage in the end.
Okay.
So when you have really low flow, then that means that you are allowing a lot of bacteria to make colonies on the inner layer of the pipe.
Yeah.
So this would also create the material to wear out. In the end, you're going to have leakage, downtime, and it's also safety critical.
Got it. So if you want to have your pipe last longer and be safe, you need to measure the flow and adapt it to the various situations. And I guess then temperature and pressure enter into play as well, because the pipe is going to change shape and form and viscosity, whatever, for the liquid. So all these conditions actually will impact the durability, the lifespan of that pipe.
Correct.
And the safety of the whole process.
Correct, right? That is spot on. So what we want to do is the real business problem is that we want to measure the flow so that we are in the acceptable thresholds of not too high, not too low, so that we can extend the lifespan of the asset.
Okay, let's dive into exactly the details of what we just mentioned right now.
Sure. So the first thing that we would like to do is to gather all the data. So we would like to look into the sources that are available, and we would like to gather that all together in order to be able to calculate the actual flow.
Okay.
So we have a pipe, right? So, and we can have two temperature sensors, one on the inlet and one on the outlet. So where the liquid flows in and where it goes out. And then this is what we call IoT data. So this is the measurements from your sensors. So now we have something which we call the asset property. So we would like to understand a bit more of what the pipe really is. What is the diameter of the pipe, for example? Because this is important to make the calculation right.
It factors in the results of your measurements, basically.
Correct. So the fluid properties are also pretty critical. So we would like to have information about the density and viscosity. So because several liquids can flow through a pipe. And then we would also like to have the business rules. So how do we actually calculate given all these variables? And
so basically, human will decide what is the threshold for you're not safe anymore, or what is the limit for the wear on that pipe before it needs to be changed, or this kind of thing.
Correct. So besides that, the adjustments that need to be made on achieving optimal flow is closing and opening some valves so that you can have the optimal optimal flow.
Makes sense.
So all these data that it's pretty that are not changing pretty often, we call that reference data.
Okay.
So now what we also would like to know is about the operation mode that we are in. To give you an example, that would be a cycle has started or a cycle has finished, or we are in maintenance mode or we're in normal operation. So these are all events that are happening on the floor. And also we would like to see what kind of circuit do we have, how many heat exchangers, but also we would like to know the mass flow, which is the speed with which the liquid travels through the pipe.
Okay, so you have data from the sensors, you have data from the operations, you have data from the context data from the properties. tons of data
Right.
coming from many different places. Got
So
it.
we have if we follow the data inventory logic, we have the IoT data, which is coming from the sensors. We have the reference data, which is data that it depends on the property of the fluid, the property of the asset, etc. And also you have operations data. So as you go day in, day out on the operations, stuff will happen, events will change the context on how you are looking at the problem, and eventually how you're going to need to calculate the flow.
Makes sense.
Let me deep dive on the business logic on how you would be thinking this kind of problem now that we have all the data sources. So the first source of data is, as we said, it's the sensor data, and you would need two temperature readings, one for the inlet and one for the outlet. That's pretty straightforward. So the operations data could be the mass flow, so how fast the liquid drives through, flows through the pipe. You have also the operations, which is how the number of heat exchangers, and that will slightly change the way that you're calculating the flow. Reference data, now we're talking about the fluid properties and about the asset properties, so, such as pipe diameter and for viscosity and density. And now you have all this information that you can finally calculate the flow. But now the magic starts when you would need to stay within a specific threshold to be efficient in your operations. And this kind of threshold is also this threshold depends on the operations data. So if we're at the start of the cycle, or if you're at the end of the cycle, these things can change how you're looking at the problem. So what you consider being an actual problem, or it's also, you can consider that being normal. So having that flow calculation, you checked it against the threshold, and you raise an adjustment alert. So somebody needs to, or a system, or an automation system, or somebody needs to make adjustments so that you have optimal flow.
But it can be optimized, as you just mentioned. Like it's called adjustment alerts. But you have different cases where, in some cases, it's going to be human doing the change. Sometimes it's going to be the actual automated system.
So it's an action that needs to be taken either by a human or by an automation flow. And this is what we call the business rules. Right. Now I would like to show you. We have the data inventory. We know the business logic. So we sat together with an engineer to actually describe the problem. And then where it all comes together is in the solutioning aspect. So how do we implement that with Azure? So as we said, we have the operations data, which could be any data source. We stream the data in an events fashion, so it ends up on an event hub. And this data through stream analytics can end up on a business rules database. It's either blob storage or SQL. So now we have, in this particular example, we are using LoRa technology to get the data from the sensors through the LoRa one. These data is ending up on an IoT hub because these devices are registered on our IoT hub. We stream the data through stream analytics, and then in order to be able to do the calculation, to come up with a calculation of the flow, to get all the operational context in our calculation, but also to check it against the threshold, we would like to have the reference data and the business rules feeding our stream processing.
Got it. So you have three sources: IoT data, reference data, business rules that will inform the adjustment alerts. Right?
Correct, because from the sensor data alone, it's very difficult that you can contextualize and you can make sense out of a decision that you would like to make on expanding the life cycle of the asset, or not creating healthy and safety critical situations, etc. Okay.
Let me ask you about the device side of things, LoRaWAN. Well, first at a high level, what is LoRa? And why is LoRaWAN necessary or used in this kind of use cases?
So LoRa, it's a good question actually, and there were various reasons why the LoRaWAN is a good fit for this purpose. So it's a wireless technology. It is a low bandwidth, low power, but long range protocol and technology. That is ideal because you can imagine that in a factory or in a process manufacturing facility, the terrain is quite big. So that can be like in the size of a small town. So by having only a few LoRa gateways, you can actually cover a large area. So that is, like, from the cost perspective, that's quite efficient. On the other hand, it's the fact that it's wireless, it allows you to have non-intrusive sensors. What that means is that you don't have to do the wiring you don't have to intervene on the asset itself, so in this case the pipe, which this operation is quite costly and quite difficult to make, and also requires downtime. You get the non-intrusive. Sensors. You're getting the low power, which practically what it means is that you have low battery consumption.
Yeah.
So the frequency of communication is very low. So this makes the battery last longer.
Yeah.
And that means that you can have in specific areas that you don't want to have, like you want to have as less as human intervention as possible, because there can be restricted areas or hazardous areas. So you don't want to expose the field engineers there.
Yep.
So it's good because the sensor can last for years and the battery can last for years, and then it could still send your telemetry, and you could do the processing in the back. Another thing that is important is that this operation in the past, or currently in some cases, it's been still done manually. So you send a field engineer, they take the measurement manually and at a sample rate of, let's say, once every a few weeks. And then it's kind of difficult to respond as soon as you would like to respond on a situation for adjusting the flow and thus expanding the life cycle, the lifespan of the.
You're in a mode where actually you're not doing any sort of predictive or preemptive maintenance. You're just like coming at a regular interval, which is whether useless because everything is all right, or too late.
It's too late, exactly. It's too late.
Yeah. So IoT actually allows you, through the wireless, nature of that connectivity, but also through the automation of the flow calculation. Because you were saying the guy takes the measure manually, so that means then he needs to enter that into a table, enters the reference. I don't know if he has like special Excel spreadsheets or a piece of application has been custom deployed or built.
It is the latter, but it makes like the solution, the scale of the solution is really difficult to achieve if you have like multiple assets that you need to roll it out and get measurements for all of them, right?
Awesome.
And also the important thing is that field engineers are not taking that measurement. So you have less and less exposure of engineers in the field, which is like safety is a critical thing in process manufacturing.
Yeah, they can focus on something else.
Correct.
And I see there's an IoT Edge icon in there. Where does it help, and what kind of scenario? How do you implement the connectivity as this LoRa infrastructure to Azure, basically?
Right. So you can either have like LoRa gateways, and you can roll out your private LoRa network, right? And you can get a third party or a Microsoft partner to actually provide the network and application server, the LoRa network and application server, so that your devices are allowed to communicate through that network to Azure. Or you could also run the LoRa network server as a module on the edge. So that unlocks a lot of possibilities and lots of flexibility there.
You can imagine starting distributing some of that intelligence down to the edge device itself, so they can actually react down there on site, on premises, versus having sent all the data in the cloud. And
correct. In this scenario, the frequency of communication is pretty low, but the power comes when you start connecting to more data sources that you need to make critical decisions on the spot. So this is super critical.
Awesome. Costas, very interesting insight into process manufacturing, real life examples.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming in and telling us about this solution that you've been working on. If you want to learn more about process manufacturing, you can go to aka.ms/IoT show/process manufacturing, and you'll have plenty more information besides the fantastic demo or actually architecture design that Costas just showed here. Well, you're welcome anytime for other use cases that make IoT more real.
Oh, you bet.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.